Revealed, how a black CEO overcame a humiliating incident to transform a $5 billion company forever. Marcus Thompson stood at the center of the boardroom, heart pounding, palms sweating. Today wasn't just another pitch, this was his shot at everything he'd worked for. He could almost hear his grandmother's voice echoing in his mind, "Keep pushing, Marcus, keep pushing." At just mid-30s, this African-American entrepreneur had climbed his way up in a struggling tech company that felt more like an exclusive club where he rarely belonged. Now, he was ready to present his innovative new project that could change the course of the company. As he began, the room buzzed with anticipation. But then it happened. A senior board member, James Fletcher, an old dinosaur who had long since lost touch with the world outside his privileged life, erupted like a volcano. "Marcus," he interjected, a tone dripping with condescension, "do you really think you have the technical expertise to lead this project? Maybe we should just leave the heavy lifting to those who know better." Gasps filled the room. Marcus's heart sank as he felt all eyes on him, not just curious, but judgmental. He could almost see his grandmother's tired eyes filled with disappointment, and it stung. The outburst sliced deeper than just his professional image. It tore open a festering wound that reminded him of the countless times he felt like an outsider. It was a moment where the walls of his hard-earned dignity began to crumble. Fueled by a burning anger and the wisdom of his grandfather, who always spoke of dignity in adversity, Marcus had a choice to make. Would he let this moment define him, or would he seize it to ignite change? Gathering himself, he looked at his colleagues. Some were sympathetic, while others seemed unfazed. But here was a flicker of hope, a few whites in the room who, for the first time, began to see the bias that pervaded not just their company, but their culture. Together, they started drafting an initiative to redefine diversity and inclusion in their workplace, holding informal meetings that felt charged with energy, a palpable hope for a better future. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But as the days passed, tensions built. The clash between those who wanted to cling to the old ways and those who craved change brought them to the brink of chaos. They held discussions that unearthed uncomfortable truths. Everyone was forced to reflect on their biases. Some walked away enlightened, while others harbored resentment. However, a critical follow-up meeting loomed, where Marcus would face not only the board but the very man who had humiliated him. As he stepped into the boardroom, the air crackled with tension. Everyone turned to him, waiting, watching, almost as if the entire room held its breath. Would he retaliate? Would he confront the injustice? Or would he choose a path of understanding, honoring his family's values, and perhaps guide the company towards a more inclusive future? Just as Marcus prepared to speak, a sudden memory emerged, pulling him back to his family's struggles, the lessons of forgiveness and integrity that shaped the man he had become. The weight of his decision bore heavily on him. And with it, the fate of both his career and the company hung in the balance. Would he rise to the occasion or succumb to the fire of injustice surrounding him? Marcus took a deep breath, peering around the table at the faces fixed on him with a blend of curiosity and trepidation. The tension in the room was nearly suffocating. He could feel the weight of their expectations hanging over him like a thick fog, and for a moment, doubt crept into his mind. But then came the image of his grandmother again, her hands worn but steady, her legacy whispering a mantra of resilience. "Thank you for that spirited introduction, James," he began, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I think it represents precisely what I want to discuss today. The need for growth, not just in terms of technology but in our overall culture." He paused, letting his words settle like stones in still water. Marcus was ready to embrace vulnerability. "James, I respect your experience, but I think we can all agree that expertise comes in many forms. I'm not here to just prove my technical skills. I'm here to advocate for a new way of thinking that includes the insights of diverse voices. The air hung still, every eye drawn in closer, as if daring to let fear go in favor of hope. He couldn't help but notice the way that a few heads nodded subtly. Karen, the marketing director, once quiet and timid, leaned forward, her enthusiasm budding. "I agree with Marcus," she piped in, a hint of anger flaring in her eyes. "We need to stop operating in a way that only reinforces old biases. If we really want to move forward, we have to be willing to embrace new perspectives." Marcus felt a swell of encouragement, as if his own heart was suddenly pounding a rhythm of solidarity. Others joined in. A younger member of the board, Tom, added, "If we want our company to thrive in this rapidly changing world, we have to expand our definition of leadership." James Fletcher's face flushed crimson, but for once in that moment, he said nothing. Instead, the silence around the boardroom morphed into a powerful unity that rippled through the group. But all that could quickly change, and Marcus knew it. After heated discussions that spanned hours, the board agreed to form a committee aimed at increasing diversity. Together, they mapped out plans for mentorship programs, comprehensive bias training, and a focus on inclusive recruitment strategies. It felt like a breakthrough, a victory that was both personal and collective. Yet, deep within, Marcus cried out a warning that the battle was far from over. Old habits die hard, and he was painfully aware that some would resist their new direction. Outwardly they seemed united, yet he could sense the undercurrents just beneath the surface, a brewing storm of skeptics who still clung to their comfort zones. With a fire ignited in his chest, Marcus decided to take the lead on the very committee they had formed. He poured his passion into assembling a team that represented varied backgrounds, and together they painted a vision of what a true collaborative culture could look like. But as new initiatives were drafted, whispers of dissent began to snake their way through the corridors. James wasn't going down without a fight, and Marcus felt a chill. He had dared to stand up, to push forward against the norm, and now he knew the challenges had morphed from the boardroom to the shadows of the company culture itself. What would it cost him to continue this fight? And how far was he willing to go in pursuit of the change he believed in so deeply? With each new day came new battles, and uncertainty lingered like a rain cloud overhead. As he lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, a thought struck him: could he protect this fragile momentum they had created? He knew that maintaining the course would demand everything he had, his energy, heart, and soul. But could he risk it all for the possibility of success, both for himself and every other underrepresented voice longing to be heard within those walls? Marcus didn't have the answers yet, but one thing felt clear: an unexpected confrontation, delicate to navigate, loomed on the horizon. He would have to be ready, because the fight for change had only just begun. Would he have the strength to lead when the storm finally broke? Marcus woke up the next morning with the sun spilling into his bedroom, golden and bright. It felt like a fresh start, but the weight of yesterday lingered, charging his thoughts like static electricity. He jumped out of bed, shaking off the remnants of his doubt. Today wasn't just another day, it was a chance to take a stand, to show everyone that change wasn't just an ideal, it was a necessity. As he grabbed a quick breakfast, he scrolled through his phone. Mentions of the newly formed diversity committee had begun to circulate online. Mixed reactions poured in. Some applauded the initiative, while others mocked the very need for it. Breathing deeply, he reminded himself to focus on the positives. He couldn't let the naysayers clip his wings before the flight began. At the office, he entered the boardroom with purpose. The atmosphere hummed with anticipation, a cocktail of skepticism and hopeful energy. People had gathered for the first official meeting of the diversity committee, and as Marcus looked around, he saw faces that were anxious yet willing. They were ready to dive into uncharted waters. His heart surged with resolve. "Thank you all for being here," he said, clasping his hands together. "Today is about taking the first step toward building a company culture that values everyone and showcases our collective strength." He noticed the faint smile spreading across several faces and felt a flicker of hope light up inside him. As conversations flowed and brainstorming began, passion ignited the room. There was an energy he hadn't felt in a long while. Ideas bounced around community outreach programs, employee resource groups, and innovative partnerships with local organizations. The atmosphere was electric, and Martin marveled at the diverse perspectives that filled the room. But just when he thought the tide was in his favor, a familiar voice sliced through the anticipation. It was James Fletcher, standing tall in the corner, arms crossed defiantly. His presence darkened the sunny momentum they had built. "You really think this is going to change anything?" James scoffed, shaking his head. "You can't just make up for decades of poor hiring practices with a few mentorship programs. You're delusional." The tension coated the air like thunder before a storm. Marcus felt his stomach twist, but he also sensed others bracing themselves for impact. He had been warned that James would come out swinging, and here it was the confrontation he'd been dreading. Yet, a flicker of defiance ignited within him. "James, to change a culture, we must first acknowledge it. It's not a magic fix, but it's a start," he responded, struggling to maintain his composure. "We need to be willing to listen and adapt. If we ignore the problems, we're bound to repeat them." The room fell silent. The weight of Marcus's words loomed. He could see the eyes of his colleagues shifting from James to him, considering their position carefully. Would they align with the status quo or stand behind him in this pursuit of change? James, relentless, pressed on. "But this is not the answer." His voice dripped with condescension, and just when Marcus thought he had lost the battle, Karen, who had been quiet all along, finally found her voice. "It is the answer," she interjected, her tone firm. "We can't keep sitting back. We need to take action. We owe it to ourselves and to every employee who has felt stifled because of outdated practices." That sparked a ripple of support. Tom chimed in, "Karen's right. It's time for us to address this head-on. We won't stay silent." The tide was shifting, and as Marcus caught the fire in their eyes, he felt hope swell. But there was still a long road ahead. How would they keep this momentum going amid the resistance? What would they need to do to ensure that the whispers of dissent didn't drown out their united voices? With every ounce of his being, Marcus vowed to push forward. Each challenge, each confrontation, would only fuel his determination. Together, they would craft a vision that didn't just challenge the status quo but obliterated it. As the meeting wrapped, he felt the weight of possibility pressing down on his shoulders. He was ready to lead this charge, but part of him couldn't shake the feeling that this would be just the beginning of a battle that might test not only his resolve but also his very identity. As he left the boardroom, Marcus felt whispers of doubt creeping in again. The cost of change was high, and he questioned whether he could rally everyone for the uphill battle ahead. What sacrifice would it demand of him, and more importantly, what hidden truths would be revealed when the storm broke? As Marcus stepped into the bustling office corridor, the echoes of the boardroom lingered like a bittersweet melody. He felt the weight of 100 eyes on him, some supportive, others skeptical. He could almost hear the murmurs fluttering past him like restless butterflies. Can they really do it? Is this just another corporate sham? He clenched his jaw, keeping his eyes forward. Doubt clouded his thoughts again. What if James was right? What if this change would just become another fleeting moment, like a summer squall that left no trace? Moments later, he found himself in front of his office door. He opened it slowly, taking in the familiar sight of his workspace, a mix of organized chaos with papers scattered like fallen leaves and framed photos capturing memories of his journey. The picture of his daughter's bright smile caught his eye, reminding him why this fight was worth it. She was the future, and he needed to pave a better path for her. As he sat down, his phone buzzed. A message from Karen lights up the screen. "Let's meet. I have some ideas to keep the momentum going." Relief washed over him. He wasn't alone in this. Together, they could navigate this labyrinth of resistance. They agreed to meet at a nearby cafe, a cozy place adorned with colorful murals and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Walking in, Marcus spotted Karen already seated at a corner table, her tablet open and her brow furrowed in concentration. It was a sight that propelled him with renewed energy. "Hey, Karen," he greeted, sliding into the seat across from her. "Hi, Marcus. I've been jotting down some strategies we can pitch to the team," she said, her enthusiasm palpable. She flipped the tablet around, revealing a list of actionable steps that were bold yet achievable, and Marcus felt a smile tug at the corners of his mouth. As they dove into the conversation, ideas flowed effortlessly. They spoke about setting up listening sessions, creating safe spaces for everyone to voice their concerns, and even teaming up with community schools for internships. The more they brainstormed, the more the vision took shape, becoming a cohesive plan that could inspire change. But just as they started feeling invincible, Marcus's phone buzzed again. It was a notification, another post from an employee who was voicing concerns, but this time, it was directed at him personally. It accused him of promoting a politically correct agenda at the expense of the company's integrity. Anger flared, then burned to ash in his stomach. "This is what I was afraid of," he said, frustration fizzling the excitement in the air. "They're attacking us instead of the problem." Karen leaned in, her eyes deep with understanding. "Marcus, you can't let this derail you. Criticism is part of the journey. It can fuel your fire if you let it." He nodded, realizing she was right. Change would face backlash. That was inevitable. But it was how they responded that would set the tone moving forward. "Okay," he said, determination blooming anew within him. "Let us use this. Let us show them how we plan to address these concerns. We'll hold a town hall meeting next week. It's time to face this head-on." Karen's smile was infectious. "Absolutely. Let us make it count." As they continued to plan and prepare, Marcus felt a growing sense of purpose. With Karen at his side, he knew they could navigate this maze together. Yet, as they wrapped up their meeting and left the cafe, a niggling question kept surfacing in Marcus's mind. What if the resistance became more than just words? What if it escalated, forcing him to make difficult choices about his leadership and his own beliefs? The road ahead loomed daunting, shrouded in ambiguity. And as he walked back to the office, he could hear it whispering, every fiber of his being tingling with anticipation. Would he be ready to face the storm ahead? The next few days blurred into a whirlwind of planning and sleepless nights. Marcus pored over every detail for the upcoming town hall meeting, unwilling to leave any stone unturned. Despite the resolve building within him, doubt still crept in, like a shadow that refused to fade. He could almost feel the skepticism hanging in the air at the office. He knew there were colleagues who just wouldn't buy into his vision, no matter how passionately he spoke. He arrived at the office on the day of the town hall with a knot twisting in his stomach. Each step toward the meeting room felt heavier than the last. As he entered, a sea of familiar faces met his gaze, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into a lion's den instead of a supportive environment. "Let us get this started," he said, trying to inject a boost of courage into his voice. At the front of the room, a projector displayed the title Community and Culture, Building Together, but it felt like the words were mocking him. Karen leaned against the wall, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of the high stakes they were facing together. She gave Marcus a nod and a reassuring smile that steeled his resolve. He took a deep breath. "Thank you all for being here today. I know this is a challenging time for us," he began. The murmur in the room quieted, all eyes now on him. "I've seen the concerns expressed on our internal forums, and it's clear we have work to do." As he laid out their vision for change, he spoke of unity, inclusivity, and the importance of working together. He described their plans for discussions, outreach programs, and a revamped mentoring system. He wanted them to feel a part of the process, even those who had doubts. "I know some of you are skeptical," he pressed on. And that's okay. Criticism is part of navigating this path. But what I need from you is to engage, to voice your concerns directly, instead of online. He paused, letting his words hang in the air like an invitation. This isn't just about a corporate agenda. It's about shaping a better environment for all of us. Just then, a hand shot up from across the room. Marcus recognized Lisa, a longtime employee known for her outspokenness. She spoke candidly, her voice steady. "Marcus, I appreciate the efforts, but do you really think this will make a difference? We've tried initiatives before, and they fizzled out." Something in her tone resonated with him. It was raw and real, a glance into the doubts that echoed in so many minds. "You're right," he admitted. "Past attempts haven't worked. But this is different. We're not just looking to tick boxes. We want to reform how we operate from the inside out. I want you to challenge everything, to tell me what hasn't worked. Let us roll up our sleeves and fix it together." The room was silent, then a murmuring began to rise, an expression of uncertainty mixed with a spark of curiosity. He could sense the energy shifting, the walls starting to crack. Moments later, another voice joined in. This time, it was James, the one who had initially dismissed Marcus's plans. "Okay, but why now? Why should we believe you?" His tone was skeptical but tinged with a hint of challenge, and Marcus felt grateful for it. "Because," he said, drawing in the strength of his conviction, "this isn't just my fight. It's ours. The only way we move forward is by doing it together. I want to hear your thoughts. Every last one of them." As discussions ignited around the room, Marcus's heart swelled with hope. The questions and criticisms flowed freely, yet something new was brewing. It felt like there was a chance for the team to change, to finally engage in the dialogue he had envisioned. But then, from the corner of the room, a voice pierced through the noise. "This is all just talk, Marcus. Words without action don't mean a thing." Every head turned to the source, a young employee who had recently joined the company. The feeling in the room shifted again, uncertainty looming like a storm cloud. Could they truly survive the storm brewing amongst them? Would action ever follow? Everything hung in the balance, and Marcus took a moment to collect himself. What could he say that would bridge the gap between intention and action? How could he transform the words into tangible change? With a hard swallow, he found his voice again. "You're right, and it's going to take all of us to ensure that we don't become stagnant. So let us hold each other accountable together." As he spoke, he could feel the tension starting to dissolve just a bit. Maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to come together. But in the back of his mind, a nagging worry loomed. What if this fragile thread of hope tore apart as quickly as it had formed? Would he have the courage to stand firm when the waves of resistance crashed over him again? The room filled with voices, some supportive, others questioning, but Marcus stood at the center, heart pounding. Would he be able to harness this momentum? Or would it slip through his fingers like sand in an hourglass? As the discussion continued, the energy in the room shifted like the tides. Questions flew around like butterflies, uncertain, beautiful, and desperately seeking a flower. Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline as voices raised, some in passion, others in skepticism. But amid all this, he sensed a fragile thread connecting them. "Marcus, if we're truly going to make a difference, we need to tackle the heart of our issues. We can't just slap a new coat of paint on it," said Lisa, her determination palpable in the air. "Exactly." James jumped in. "I mean, what about the issues of diversity that were swept aside last year? That's a huge part of this." The air crackled with excitement. Marcus's heart raced. This was what he wanted, a real conversation, not just a parade of platitudes. "Let us talk about everything," he asserted, his voice finding its rhythm. "I want to hear what we can do differently. What can we do to ensure that everyone feels represented and heard?" Hands shot up across the room, hesitation fading, as the walls of doubt slowly crumbled. A desire for change was rising, like the sunlight breaking through dark clouds. They talked about transparent hiring practices, about mentoring programs that were inclusive and real. They discussed how they could show management's commitment through actions, not just words. Amid the discussions, a feeling of unity began to grow. Karen soon chimed in, her voice warm and encouraging. It's not just about what Marcus says. It's about us working as a team now. Accountability goes both ways. The ripple of agreement surged through the room. It was a turning point, and Marcus's smile widened, but deep down, he felt an undercurrent of fear. Was this energy just an illusion? Would it vanish when faced with the reality of change? Just then, as he looked around at the faces lighting up with passion, his phone buzzed on the table, a message from his mentor, Ethan. Keep pushing forward, but remember, real change takes time. The words hit him like a wave, both refreshing and daunting. Change doesn't happen overnight, he said, taking a collective breath. And I know some of you have serious concerns about whether this will stick. But I promise you, I'm committed to ensuring we follow through together. He paused, scanning the room. Was he instilling confidence or simply laying the groundwork for skepticism? A hand rose, this time from someone near the back. It was Angela, a soft-spoken analyst who had rarely spoken up before. I've been afraid to share my thoughts, but this feels different. Can we really do this? Marcus felt a surge of warmth for her courage to speak up. Yes. We absolutely can. It starts with each one of us. No voice is too small in this fight for our future. He watched as Angela's hesitant posture shifted. She sat a little taller, her spirit beginning to shine. As the meeting progressed, laughter bubbled up alongside deep discussions, and Marcus felt a cautious hope bloom within him. Yet, as the clock ticked closer to the end of their time together, he couldn't shake the sense of urgency. Real change felt possible, but lingering doubts about execution still loomed large. With the meeting winding down, Marcus knew he needed to address the elephant in the room. I know there's still a long road ahead, and we have to be transparent about what comes next. I need all of you to hold me accountable, and let us meet again next month to check on our progress. The mixed expressions on the faces around him indicated they were all in, but silently questioning whether they could sustain this energy. Together, we can turn today's words into action. Let us create a culture of communication, he added, his voice firmer than before. Can we commit to that? A chorus of murmurs filled the room, a mix of agreement, hesitance, and same old doubt. But something was different, a flicker of determination sparked in the air, urging them to find strength in solidarity. As they began to stand and prepare to leave, Marcus felt an electrifying charge moving through him. They had touched the surface of something important today and stepped toward transformation. Yet, he realized how fragile their progress was. Would those voices remain engaged, or would fear and indifference creep back in? Would he be able to maintain that growth, or would it slip away like grains of sand again? The collective energy shifted, and with it, Marcus faced the challenge ahead. Would they all find the bravery to continue this fight? He took a deep breath, heart racing, as the room emptied, and he called out to Karen, whose eyes met his with a knowing glance. This is just the beginning, isn't it? Just then, a firm voice echoed from the doorway. We need to talk about the funding for these initiatives. How serious are we, really? Marcus turned, the weight of uncertainty returning as he thought about what their next move would entail. Would they have the resources to back up their words? Stepping forward, he felt the knot in his stomach tighten. What would it take to push through this next challenge, and could he lead them there together? The air in the hallway felt thick as Marcus stepped toward the voice that had interrupted the hopeful moment. It was Jonathan, the company's head of finance, known for his no-nonsense attitude. His brow was furrowed, and Marcus immediately sensed the gravity of the situation. This was not just about optimism anymore, it was about reality. Jonathan, I hear you, Marcus replied, trying to maintain his composure. Transforming this culture requires not just passion but resources. The mounting tension in the room was a reminder of the work that lay before them. Jonathan nodded, seeming to size him up. "So how serious are you about this? We can't throw money at problems and expect them to go away. There needs to be a clear strategy, a plan." The words stung, but they were true. Marcus had been riding the wave of enthusiasm from the meeting. Now it felt like a reality check had just splashed him in the face. "Let us sit down and map it out," Marcus suggested, though uncertainty bubbled in his gut. A strategy for funding, a timeline for implementation, everything. He felt the weight of hope tilting under the pressure of logistics. "Good," Jonathan replied, his expression softening slightly. "I want to help, but we have to be realistic about what we can achieve and when." They settled into a nearby conference room, the familiar smell of coffee filling the air, but it did little to ease Marcus's nerves. Armed with nothing but determination, he pulled out a blank sheet of paper. "Let us start with our goals." As they outlined the necessary steps from seeking grants and reallocating internal funds to identifying key stakeholders, Marcus felt a slight flame of hope reigniting within him. If they could articulate clear objectives, they might actually turn those passionate words from earlier into actionable plans. But self-doubt lingered, whispering in the back of his mind. What if the plans fell flat? What if the struggle for funds became too exhausting? Midway through their brainstorming session, Lisa popped her head in. "Hey, I couldn't help but overhear. Need any extra hands?" Marcus looked at Jonathan, who shrugged. "The more, the merrier," he said. In less than 20 minutes, they had transformed the space into a flurry of ideas, voices overlapping as they built upon each proposal. Lisa's optimism was infectious, inspiring Marcus to see possibilities instead of obstacles. They considered everything: partnerships with local nonprofits, potential corporate sponsors, and ways to leverage social media campaigns. With each idea, Marcus could feel the energy shift back to that familiar hopefulness. They could actually do this, but as each strategy bloomed, so did the reality that they need to face outside scrutiny. The fear of judgment lurked just beneath the surface with every bold step they discussed. As the sun dipped lower outside the window, Marcus caught a glimpse of himself reflected in the glass. His own expression mirrored the uncertainty and resolve swirling within him. He knew they were embarking on this journey together, but the path ahead seemed like a daunting mountain to climb. "Marcus, you okay?" Jonathan's voice pulled him back to reality. "You look a bit lost." Taking a deep breath, he offered a smile, though it didn't reach his heart. "Just thinking about how far we need to go." Lisa chimed in, "But Marcus, remember, every step counts. We've already made progress. We need to celebrate that." Her enthusiasm filled the room, and he felt a bit of weight lift. Maybe it was true. They had taken significant steps forward, but doubt still nagged him. Could they weather the challenges ahead? And would others who weren't in the room share their vision? Would they fight for the change Marcus knew they all desperately needed? As they wrapped up for the night, the lingering questions stuck in Marcus's mind. They had direction, but was it enough? He looked at Jonathan and Lisa, their faces a blend of determination and excitement. "We meet again tomorrow?" Jonathan asked, shifting into practical mode once more. "Yes, same time," Marcus confirmed, though the unknown stretched out before him. And as he stepped out into the cool evening air, he felt that knot tightening again. "Just remember," he mumbled to himself as he walked to his car, "this is just the start." And with every step he took, the weight of responsibility grew heavier. What if the first stumble brought them back to square one? Would he have the strength to elevate them again, or would they sink into doubt and confusion? Tomorrow would come with its own challenges, and Marcus knew the fight to ensure their voices would be heard had only just begun. What if they faltered when push came to shove? Would their dream of genuine change slip away like a fading echo? The morning sun spilled through Marcus's window like liquid gold, brightening the dull corners of his room, but it didn't warm the chill that lingered in his bones. He sat up and rubbed his eyes, the weight of yesterday still pressing down on him. Doubts danced in the periphery of his mind, whispering insidious questions. He couldn't let them win. Not today. A quick shower awakened his senses, washing away remnants of uncertainty. He dressed carefully, wanting to project confidence, but in the mirror, he recognized the forced smile he wore. This had to change. The drive to the office felt longer than usual, each stoplight a reminder of the increasing pressure. Marcus's heart raced as he replayed the plans in his head. Were they solid enough? Would Jonathan and Lisa show up ready to fight for their dream? Arriving at the office, he noticed an unusual buzz in the atmosphere. Teammates were already gathered in small clusters, exchanging eager whispers. He smiled at familiar faces, though the swirl of anxiety surged again. Everyone had different ideas about what change should look like. What if their visions clashed instead of aligning? When he stepped into the conference room, Jonathan and Lisa were already there, reviewing notes from the previous evening. The energy was palpable, a shared excitement radiating from them. Yet, Marcus couldn't shake off the feeling that they were still on a tightrope, balancing between ambition and reality. Ready to take on the world? Lisa grinned, the sparkle in her eyes infectious. "Let's just start with our world for now," Marcus replied, attempting to match her vibrancy while pushing his doubts aside. They launched into the meeting, every idea sparking debate, but it felt right. As they worked through the finer points of their strategy, Marcus sensed a shift within himself. This wasn't just a business plan, it was a vision for a new culture, one that resonated with their shared values. But the clock was ticking. They had to nail the presentation to the board next week. The thought made Marcus's stomach churn. Each second seemed to throb with urgency as they drafted their pitch. "I think we should highlight the community partnerships first," Lisa suggested, her excitement bubbling over. "It shows our commitment to change." "Absolutely. And we can frame that within the broader spectrum of company legacy," Marcus added, warming to her energy. As they built a coherent narrative, Jonathan chimed in with his analytical mind. "Don't forget, metrics and accountability will matter. We need to show how these partnerships can impact our bottom line." Marcus felt a flicker of pride as they launched into discussions, each voice strengthening the foundation of their proposal. Moments turned into hours, but they were on a roll. Just as they were finalizing the last slide, Lisa's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen, her face paling. "Oh no. It's the HR department." A wave of concern washed over the group. Marcus felt his heart drop. Was it about what he feared? Had someone already started undermining their effort? "What does it say?" Jonathan asked, urgency coloring his voice. "I have to take this," Lisa said, her voice taut, retreating to the hallway. Marcus exchanged worried looks with Jonathan. Every second stretched into eternity as they waited for her return. The passionate conversation they had shared just moments ago began to feel tenuous, as if it could unravel at any moment. The door opened again, and Lisa stepped back in, her face stark. "We need to talk. They just informed me there's been a complaint about our project. An anonymous source disagrees with the direction we're taking." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, the sense of impending doom sinking into the room. Marcus's heart raced. Could this be the crack that would break their fragile effort? "Do we know who it is?" Jonathan asked, tension tightening his jaw. Lisa shook her head. "No, but we need to prepare ourselves. They could put a stop to everything." Fear settled in Marcus's gut, but he fought it back. They had built something beautiful together, and he refused to let it fall apart. "Then we'll show them how powerful our vision is," he exclaimed, channeling fervor into every word. "We can't let one voice drown out the many. We have to stand firm." But deep down, doubts churned again. Would they have the strength to stand up against the unknown? As the meeting ended and reality crashed in, Marcus stared at his team, their faces reflecting a mix of determination and fear. Tomorrow would mean confronting not just the board, but the very shadows that loomed over their aspirations. Would they have the courage to push back? Or would this threat shatter their dreams? There was no turning back now. The next day dawned with a heavy gray overcast, as if the world outside felt the weight of Marcus's anxiety. He tossed and turned, unable to shake the anticipation that clung to him like a damp fog. Today, they would face the board, and the stakes could not be higher. He dressed more carefully than usual, pulling on a navy blue suit that he'd worn for previous presentations. It was a symbol of confidence, a garment soaked in familiarity. Yet as he buttoned his shirt, the reflection showed a man struggling beneath the surface. This wasn't just about a project anymore, it felt personal. The car ride to the office was filled with silence, thoughts racing alongside the streets. Lisa and Jonathan were seated in the back seat, their expressions darkened with shared tension. The team was strong, but even strength seemed fragile when faced with the unknown. Upon arrival, the atmosphere was tense. The usual buzz of the office was replaced by an eerie quiet, whispers hushed as colleagues sensed the impending storm. Marcus caught sight of familiar faces, some nodded in silent solidarity, yet others wore masks of curiosity, eager to hear what would unfold. In the conference room, the walls felt closer, the air thicker. Marcus could feel Jonathan's hand clench the armrest beside him, Lisa tapping her pencil nervously against her pad. He cleared his throat, he had to break this spell of apprehension. "We've fought hard for this vision," he began, his voice steady despite the quake inside. "And today, we'll show them the power of unity in change." The board members filed in, a sea of expressions ranging from skeptical to indifferent. At the head of the table, Mr. Thompson sat, a seasoned executive whose reputation for cutting down proposals had overshadowed him. Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline. This was their moment to shine. They started strong, with Lisa leading off with their vision for community partnerships, her enthusiasm palpable. "This isn't just about profit, but about giving back," she stated, locking eyes with board members, trying to shake their skepticism. As Marcus stood beside her, he caught Jonathan's eye. A flash of hope ignited within him as they moved through the presentation, bouncing ideas like a well-tuned orchestra. But then came the moment they dreaded. "And now, we'll address the feedback received through HR," Lisa said, her tone turning serious, drawing everyone's attention. The room grew tight. "We understand there are concerns about the direction we're taking. But it's vital we view these challenges as opportunities to adapt and grow." Mr. Thompson leaned forward, eyebrows raised. "Interesting approach, Lisa. However, you're asking us to trust a vision that has faced immediate pushback. What guarantees do you have that this won't fail?" Marcus steeled himself, feeling the lump in his throat. "Our greatest strength is that we listen. The complaint highlights the need for further dialogue. We're prepared to engage with all stakeholders and tailor our vision as needed because it's not just our idea, but one that reflects our entire organization. We are stronger together." As their words flowed, the atmosphere began to shift. Marcus could sense a rippling of softening stances around the table, but doubt still gnawed at him. Would they really embrace this vision, or were they still teetering on the brink? After a pause, a board member spoke up, "So, you're asking for a leap of faith without concrete assurances?" Marcus felt his heart race again. This was their pivotal moment. Here was a chance to transform everything, yet it was cloaked in risk. "Leaps of faith," he said slowly, "are often where the most profound changes begin. You can either uphold the status quo or choose to venture into the unknown and emerge stronger. What we offer is a path to growth that no longer relies on outdated traditions." The silence that followed was thick with anticipation. In that instant, Marcus could see flickers of contemplation spread across the faces around the room. The tension shifted, replaced by the possibility of change. But just as he felt a spark of hope, his phone buzzed subtly in his pocket, pulling him away from the moment. It was a message from an unknown number: "The complaint isn't the only threat you face. Beware of deeper agendas." His eyes widened, heart pounding. Was there a conspiracy brewing beneath their uncertainty? As the gravity of this potential betrayal settled in, he turned back to the board, ready for whatever came next. Would they tear down what he had built, or would his team's resilience and integrity win the day? With each ticking second, the stakes only grew higher. What surprises lay ahead as they continued to navigate this chaotic junction? As Marcus stood there, facing the board, he felt the weight of every expectation pressing down on him. The room was thick with tension simmering, doubts lived between every silence. He caught Karen's eye from the back. She nodded, a silent reassurance that fueled his determination to break through. "Mr. Thompson, you're right. There are no guarantees," Marcus said, the confidence in his voice growing as he locked eyes with the board members. "But let us not forget the power of our collective voice. We're stepping into new territory because we're committed to creating a culture that represents everyone. That isn't just risk. It's responsibility." The board shifted, leaning a little closer, the rigid expressions beginning to thaw. Yet Marcus could still feel the undercurrent of skepticism, the rising dread of hidden agendas that loomed over him like looming storm clouds. "Perhaps we should also consider some metrics for success," Jonathan chimed in, steering the conversation towards pragmatic measures. "We could define clear benchmarks to assess the implementation and impact of our initiatives. It will provide accountability, making it easier to demonstrate the benefits to the company." Marcus nodded, grateful for Jonathan's insight. "That's a great point. We have to quantify our growth. But let us remember, there's value in stories as much as in numbers. We need to hear from the voices that matter most: our employees, our community." Just then, James, sitting with folded arms, leaned forward as if charged with piqued curiosity. "And how do you propose to make those stories visible? It's one thing to dream about change, it's another to execute it." "By creating platforms where everyone feels heard," Lisa interjected, her voice unwavering. "We can set up forums, town halls, even anonymous feedback channels. People need to see we're acting on their input, not just talking about it." A flicker of understanding spread through the boardroom. Ideas began to flow from various members, each contributing a thread to the tapestry they were weaving. In that moment, but Marcus knew they were just on the brink of a breakthrough. However, his phone vibrated again in his pocket, the message echoing warnings in his mind. Beware of deeper agendas. He fought back the rising panic. No, he couldn't afford to let shadows distract him from this moment. Rounding back to the board, he pushed forward with sincerity. "This isn't just about us, it's about forging a legacy. If we invest in our people, we'll reap the rewards in every aspect of our business. But we have to commit wholeheartedly to see it through." The board members exchanged hesitant looks. Would they rise to this vision? Or would they cling to comfort? The decision felt like a tightrope walk. They were so close to unearthing something transformative. "Let us call for a vote," Mr. Thompson finally stated, his voice cutting through the uncertainty. "Let us see where we all stand on this initiative." Marcus felt that electric surge again. It was a moment of truth. Hands raised one by one, almost as if testing the waters for resistance. Lisa's hand shot up first, a look of determination painted across her face. Jonathan followed, then Marcus, emboldened by the sight of their team standing united in resolve. And one by one, others joined. When the counting came to an end, the room erupted in murmurs. The numbers leaked out like a gentle tide coming ashore. "The majority is on your side," Mr. Thompson announced, a hint of surprise mingling with acceptance in his voice. Marcus felt air rush through his lungs as a warmth spread through his chest. They had done it. They had taken that leap together. Yet still, he caught sight of the familiar face of dissent, the anonymous complaint rattling like a bell in the back of his mind. Just as the meeting began to shift toward celebration, a figure emerged at the door. It was Lisa, breathless and fraught. "Guys, you're not going to believe this." "What is it?" Marcus asked, pulse quickening. "Their essay protest scheduled outside. Employees are rallying against the changes, voicing discontent. Somebody's organizing resistance, and it's gaining traction." Panic coursed through the room, fear clawing at a hard-won victory. Could their moment of success be overshadowed by a storm of dissent? "We have to address this, and quickly," Marcus said, regaining composure as a sense of purpose emerged within him. "We can't allow this resistance to fester. We need to reach out, engage, and listen. It's time we showed them what we're made of." The board looked at him, changed expressions flickering with hesitation and concern. James's voice rose from the back, "But they'll never understand unless we speak from a place of genuine commitment. We need more than just words. Actions count now." Marcus felt adrenaline surge in his veins. "Then let us put our plans into action. We can go out, speak with them, show them we're listening, but we can't retreat under the pressure." With renewed purpose, Marcus laid out a plan. Together, they would meet their colleagues outside about facing the dissent and turning it into dialogue. People couldn't be changed through mere policy, they needed a voice and a hand willing to guide them. And so, as the crowd of anxious board members prepared to walk outside, Marcus felt a spring in his step. Hope hung thick in the air as they moved towards the door. Ready to address the storm that had unexpectedly descended upon their victory, he thought, this is just the beginning. Together, they would forge ahead, hand in hand, rising against doubt and division, as powerful waves of hope began to wax like a crescendo building in a symphony. And this time, they would be the change they sought, not just for themselves, but for everyone they represented. As they stepped outside into the sea of faces waiting in protest, Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. He wasn't just an observer anymore, he was a part of something much, much bigger than himself. Would they stand together, shoulder to shoulder, welcoming the challenges ahead? "Let us do this," he announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard, weaving through the sea of the uncertain. For in the vastness of the unknown, he felt the stirring hope that united their hearts with strength and resilience. This was their moment. And they were not afraid. Now was the time to put action behind their words and transform their dream into reality. Would they rise? Would they fight? Only time would tell. Don't miss out. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to nourish the algorithm and keep these inspiring transformations alive. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters. And share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful change can be. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand how vital your support is.